Okay, welcome back, guys. Buckle up. We got a lot going on here in the Law and Crime Network. I was the first guy who had an opportunity and honor to be involved in the inaugural launch, if you will, at the Law and Crime Network of Law and Mediaite. Okay, and we had previously done a great hit with regard, of course, to all things Trump and the Trump investigation and the Mueller investigation. But I've got Aidan McLaughlin with me now. He is the managing editor at Mediaite. And Aidan, welcome to the show. And I love the concept of this, that you guys are basically bringing in how is the media responding to the current legal events, and what could be more, I guess, entertaining from a media point of view than the SDNY with their sentencing memorandum that came out last week with regard to Michael Cohen. It wasn't all too flattering with respect to Michael Cohen, and this is in relation to the campaign finance violation, i.e. money that moved around in a very circuitous way between Michael Cohen and President Trump. And we remember there was that conversation that was intercepted by the FBI that Michael Cohen had taken about that payment. It had gone through accountants. Eventually, it had gone back into Michael Cohen's account to another company. There's bank fraud associated with all of this. And everybody's all over the spectrum because individual number one, who is the person that they say orchestrated this, everyone knows to be President Trump. Aidan, what's going on in the media world with this?
Right. So it was a pretty huge bombshell that dropped on Friday night, which was pretty stunning. It was a series of documents released in the Robert Mueller investigation and the SDNY investigation into people related to the Trump campaign. So what ended up happening was you saw two different narratives build in the media. You had the typical sort of Fox News coverage of the documents that came out, which was to defend the president. And I think the best demonstration of that was Geraldo Rivera, who appeared on Fox News Saturday morning after the sentencing memos dropped. That basically implicated the president in the alleged campaign finance violations that his lawyer committed with the hush money payments to two women claiming to have affairs with Donald Trump. And Geraldo went on Fox News and basically declined to focus on those campaign finance violations, which were kind of the big story, and instead pointed out that there was no clear evidence of any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia in the sentencing memos. I think we have a clip of that.
Okay. Let's take a look.
Many, many months. This is collusion, illusion. There is nothing here. There is no smoking gun here. If there was, if indeed Michael Cohen had met with this another Russian knucklehead meets Michael Cohen, our knucklehead, and they say, well, if President Trump, could spend a little time, hanging out time with Vladimir Putin, man, things would go swimmingly, not only for Trump Tower, but also for U.S.-Russian relations. I mean, aside from that one contact that seems very mushy and braggadocious, it doesn't seem to me that there is any Russian collusion at this late date, after all that we've gone through, after the millions have been spent and the many months have told. We have no Russian collusion. It may not be as the president exuberantly tweeted that he's totally exonerated, but it certainly seems that, again, there's nothing impeachable here. His critics can have fun with this stuff. But there's no toxic, no treasonous, no criminal collusion.
And this is interesting. President Trump started tweeting out a lot of things about this. You just heard Geraldo indicate that it fully exonerates me. Let's be reasonable. I mean, it's very interesting how you guys are looking into how media is covering these things, because that was not the purpose of the sentencing memorandum. There is a ton of other evidence that is out there that they have not even gotten to the point at that location. But I think that you have some other information that's out there that we should be looking at. Is that right?
Well, I think that's really important to note. You see this a lot on Fox News whenever there's a big development in the Mueller investigation, where they basically say that whenever there's no direct evidence of any sort of coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia, they hold a celebration and say, well, this sort of exonerates the president. And that's what he's talking about in this tweet here. And I think it's sort of a bit of a smokescreen, because we have no idea what Robert Mueller has on any of this stuff. He's expected to produce a report at the end of his investigation. Until then, we don't really know whether he has evidence of collusion or any sort of illicit coordination between the Trump campaign and Russian interference in the 2016 election. So it's pretty premature to start talking about whether or not there is any collusion, and Geraldo certainly doesn't know with any certainty whether or not that did happen.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful when something is meant to be for one thing over here, and then we're drawing a conclusion with regard to something that is wholly separate and independent. But as I have said on many media hits, the last thing that you want is to have your lawyer and your accountant and other people that are cooperating with the federal government. And there are, like I said, a lot of data points. I think there's 14 contacts with Russians of a significant level, not to forget on June 9th of 16, the Trump-Russia meeting where they're working with Vetzel Niskaya, the lawyer, who is really an official for the Russian government, under the cover story for adoption, which turned out not to be true. It's about the Magnitsky Act, and then Flynn, after the election, trying to do things with regard to sanctions in violation of the Logan Act. And again, we haven't heard from Flynn, and I bet that's going to be a doozy. Again, I'm not saying that anyone is guilty or not guilty of anything, but to use this SDNY memo about campaign finance violations, it's almost, Aidan, do you get the impression like, yeah, well, that's just one thing, that's no biggie, it's still no collusion? I mean, that crime's okay.
Well, totally. I mean, I think, yeah, the bottom line is that Mueller is continuing his investigation into collusion and possible obstruction of justice. So I think what the funny thing that happened over the weekend is that while Fox News was busy saying that there was no evidence of collusion, Andrew McCarthy, who is a Fox News contributor, a former prosecutor himself, and a conservative legal pundit now, appeared on Fox and Friends on Sunday morning and basically said that this sentencing memo for Cohen shows that prosecutors are targeting Donald Trump and that he's likely to be indicted. I think we have that.
The Southern District of New York case, which is different from the Mueller case on Cohen, they are clearly going after the president on campaign finance violations. Yeah. And I think if you read the sentencing memo the Southern District filed in Cohen's case, it's clear that Trump is the target and he'll be indicted eventually.
You think the president of the United States is going to be indicted? In fact, I understand you have a FoxNews.com op-ed to that point, but I mean, that kind of stops me in my tracks. We've heard all along that, well, Justice Department guidance is that the president himself can't be, or herself down the road, cannot be indicted. But you're saying the Southern District of New York here, very powerful, that those prosecutors are likely to indict the president of the United States.
You know, Aidan, this is something that's been rankling me. Actually, Law and Crime allowed me to put an article on just to be able to vent about this, that yes, the SDNY can do that, and irrespective of the DOJ policy that it says you can't indict a sitting president, there is some legal authority for that, as well as the fact that some of these may not necessarily be federal violations, are state law crimes. In the state law system, and we learned something from those memos I think is really crucial, that the state attorney general's office for New York was in for some of these debriefings. Mueller is playing chess, not checkers. The state law crimes are not subject to the DOJ memo. It says you can't indict a sitting president, and state law crimes can't be pardoned by the president. Why is everybody missing this?
That's a good point. And I think it's also important to note that, you know, whether or not a sitting president can be indicted, there's still the prospect of impeachment. And I don't think Democrats are going to ignore that going forward.
Yeah, listen, I still say, though, in order to bring the president in on a campaign finance violation, there's still a couple of threads that need to be connected. We don't know whether, I think they still own Cohen. My feeling is same thing, state law crimes. Cohen is not out of the woods. The New York State Attorney General is going to come breathing down this guy's neck, and I wonder if a sidebar deal was cut and a wink and a nod in order to connect those strings that would make this campaign finance quote-unquote violation not just for branding and trying to get at for personal reasons, but was actually to influence the campaign, which was kind of suggested in that Cohen President Trump tape. Aidan, you were amazing. I love you guys. Law and Media is really something that's definitely needed. Thank you for your time. We got to run to a break. We'll be back on the other end.